I purchased this Hakko FR-301, it's a desoldering gun, and I paid it less than half price the retail price. Is it gonna be a bargain or a waste of money? Stay with me, I'm gonna tell you everything so you can make your own decision. Hello and welcome. Before we get into topic, this is the very first video I'm recording with my brand new Sony video camera, which has been donated by my supporters. I've made a quick video on the subject, the link is down below in the description, and if you are one of my supporters, you'll find all the receipts about all the gears I purchased on the GoFundMe page, which is also linked down below in the description. Let me thank you all for the amazing support, but we were talking about desoldering guns. So this has been my desoldering gun for quite some time, about 10 years. It's an Aoyui and it's part of a desoldering station. It's called the INT701A++. This is one of the many cheap variations that you can find online. It works more or less in the same way. It has the hideous like spring reservoir, whatever you want to call it, to catch the spring, and some sort of a like sponge material as a filter. I don't really understand how a sponge can be an air filter, but that's what I found inside. Now, this has never been great. It wasn't great on day one, and over the years I had to try and patch it up. Replace some bits and bobs, replace some gaskets, clean it. I ended up disassembling the whole station, disassembled the pump, and try and make it better, and it kind of works. You know, once you know the shortcomings of this thing, you can make it work somehow. But I've always wanted to upgrade it to something better, and I had a look online multiple times, and the options are either something like this, more or less the same price range, say about £100, or the Hakko desoldering gun, which is considered to be the best that you can buy for more or less this kind of money. Now, not exactly the same amount of money. The Hakko used to be around £300, so let's say 3 times the price of a cheap station like this. So over the years, I've been fixing this rather than buying another one. But recently, I think I would need to spend some money on this because I think the heating element is not working very well anymore, because it only reads about 260 degrees when the station is set to 480 plus 30 degrees of offset. So I should read more than 500 degrees and I'm only reading 260. Now, unfortunately, our UE in the UK don't sell just the heating element, they sell the whole gun. And they sell it for about £50. Yes, with £50 I get everything brand new, but I thought, I'm not sure I want to spend £50 on something which was never good in the first place. So it's never gonna get better than it was out of the factory. So once again I look on the market, and once again I found similar clones of these. Some are better, some are worse, some need modification, some need tweaking, some are awful, some are dangerous. Or the Hakko, which meanwhile has gone up in price. I see it on the official UK website. It can be purchased for £470, including VAT. Now, I can't justify that amount of money for a desoldering gun, which I'm not using very often. So, after looking online a little bit, I decided to go with the Japanese version of the Hakko FR-301. If I understand correctly, this is not a clone, it's a genuine Hakko FR-301, but it can be only purchased in Japan. So I went on eBay and I purchased this unit from a Japanese seller. Now, there is a big catch with the Japanese version, and it's that Japan runs mains at 100 volts. So obviously you need an adapter, and also I understand that half of Japan they're running at 50 Hz and the other half they're running at 60 Hz. So I'm in the UK, 240 volts, 50 Hz, so the frequency should be fine, but when it comes to voltage, I need an adapter. And from the same seller, I ended up purchasing the adapter as well. And as you might be able to see, it's like a kind of a small adapter, so this is not a linear transformer. I think it's based on some sort of switching technology, but it's rated 250 watts, and the Hakko FR-301 is rated 98 watts, so this should be plenty for my needs. I only received this today, so in this video we are going to unbox it, test it, and make sure that this thing actually works and it doesn't try to set my workshop on fire. And then I guess I'll test it a little bit and I'll tell you whether it's working better than my Aoyui and whether the money I spent on this unit are well spent, or maybe it's better to go for the genuine one that you can buy from the official distributor. So before unpacking the FR-301, I'd like to spend a few minutes looking into the adapter. Let's see how it works. Let's make sure it works. Now, when I purchased this on eBay, it was listed with a different name. So I'd imagine it's one of those items that you can find everywhere with different names. That makes me a bit concerned about maybe the safety of this device. But as you can see, it's pretty small. So it can't be a linear transformer, of course. And one of the reasons I bought it, because to get something like more than 100 watts from a linear transformer, you need a pretty chunk unit. I think this was like £38. So it's pretty inexpensive, and it comes from the same seller. My point was also, if something happens with this and the Hakko, I can say, look, I plugged it in and it burned. So, please help me out, hopefully. One other thing that I'm a bit concerned about this thing is the wattage rating. Now, I can't read Japanese, but I see a 250 watts in here. And I also see this interesting thing, which I guess is the output. It says 100 volts AC, 55 hertz. It's like, okay, I can input 50 to 60. I'm inputting 55. It would kind of make sense to me. If Japan is splitting between 50 and 60, let's output 55. I'm not sure. But it says 250. But if I'm looking at the device itself, it's different and most importantly unclear, because it says input 1, which is 120 from the US, I guess, 50-60 hertz, 3 amps, and then it says AC output 1, 120, so I'm not entirely sure what kind of conversion it does, 150 watts total, so not 250, but in my case, input 2, which is 200 to 140, then I have a AC output 2, which is now 120 at 200 watts total. So this is not 220 watts, but the manual says 250, but this doesn't say 250. It's just, it's probably fine for the Hakko, it's just it doesn't give me a reassurance that this device was properly designed, let's put it that way. There's also a nice note here that says please do not use in Japan, so to confirm that this is for the Japanese market. Now let's plug this in and see what kind of voltage and frequency comes out of that thing before I'm even thinking of plugging my brand new Hakko in it. Now, the first thing I want to check is this saying grounded? Because I'd like my Hakko to be grounded. It's not. I'm in continuity mode. So I don't have connected ground. It comes with 3 pins. Oh, well, if I'm looking at the power cord, it's one without the ground, which is not great. That means my Hakko is not going to be grounded. And it's definitely something I was hoping to have. I think it's a good idea that whatever's touching your PCBs is grounded. And I believe the Hakko is grounded. We'll check in a minute. Maybe the Hakko is not grounded. At that point, obviously, it doesn't really matter. Now I'm going through my isolation transformer just to be on the safe side. So let's give power to the thing. 3, 2, 1, go. And there is a little switch in here. So 3, 2, 1, go. Yeah, there is a green LED. And let's see what kind of voltage we're getting. Okay, we're getting 105 volts, which I guess it's in between 100 and 110. I guess it's totally fine. Now, can I read the frequency with this thing? Yes. Oh, it's actually it's actually outputting 55 hertz. I am impressed. I don't have 55 hertz here. I mean, I'm sure that here in the UK we got 50. There we go. We got 49.86. So this device is clearly based on some sort of switching technology. I'd imagine there is a switching section which is converting AC to DC, and then there is another one which is converting DC to AC. I think is what online UPSs are based on. They basically regenerate the AC every time, all the time, so whatever happens at the input is not being reflected on the output. I'm sure this process has a name, so if you know it, please do leave a comment down below because I'm quite curious. I guess it's time to have a look at the Hakko. So let's open the box, I'm curious myself. Alright, so this is the FR-301. I understand it's a little improvement on the FR-300. And it comes with a unit itself, which comes with a Japanese plug, including ground. We'll check in a minute. I believe this is some sort of a quick release removal tool, something like that. Then we have some spare parts in here. Not much, I don't know what that is. We'll have a look. Probably some sort of protection for the soldering side. We'll have a look. And a couple of filters. And then we have a tool here to clean, I guess, the tip when it clogs up, which happens with any type of desoldering gun. And then we have a little screwdriver. I'm not sure what that is for. That's it. There's nothing else. One thing I'm a bit disappointed, but I don't think there's anything wrong with this unit here. It doesn't come with extra tips. I was hoping to have, I don't know, 2-3 different tips, large and small. But I haven't checked online. But one thing of the Hakko soldering stations, usually tips are very good quality and they're not too expensive. So maybe I can just buy a few more. Now, the tool itself feels very, very, very solid. I mean, it's made of plastic, but it doesn't feel flimsy at all, and it really feels genuine. I really don't think that this is like a clone or a knockoff. There is a serial number here at the back. It says it's manufactured in November 2025, so it's pretty recent. And as you can see, it also says 100 volts, 98 watts, 50, 60 hertz. So this is definitely designed to work with either 50 or 60. So if you want to purchase from Japan, assuming this is going to work in the end, the frequency doesn't matter. And also there's a nice note about vacuum on 5 seconds, off 10 seconds, which I'm going to talk about that in a minute. I think it's actually, there's a very good point in that. Now, of course, there's a manual and a warranty card in the box. They just slipped out when I opened it earlier on. The manual is very simple. I had a look with Google Translate. It just says, how to desolder, basically. And there are a few interesting points. Number one, we can choose the temperature of the tip. It's a manual process. There's no display. It's a very simple device. And there's a little wheel at the bottom, and you can choose from 350 to 500 degrees. And they make a very good point. They basically says on a single layer board, where the solder is only on one side, you can use the minimum setting at 350. That's going to be plenty. For a multi-layer board, you can go up to 4, which is 500 degrees. I guess there's a little balance in between not damaging the board and actually desoldering the board, but it's nice that this can actually go up to 500 degrees. And the instructions say that this should be up to temperature in 1 minute. And I remember my IOUI on the manual is set to wait 8-9 minutes before using the desoldering gun. So this is just a great advantage. There is also a little screw in here, which is, you might be able to see here, to calibrate the temperature. So I don't think it's really necessary, but it's something that can be done. And that's it. I would say, let's turn it on. This feels very genuine. Let's put it that way. I mean, if it's a clone, it's a very good clone. This really feels like genuine Japanese thing, and it definitely came from Japan. Now, this is the first time I'm actually using it myself. I had to have a look at the instructions, but to release the filter section here, you just pull it down. Well, it falls off. They're very simple. And I understand that little part in there, that's the improvement of the 1 in 301. Apparently the 300 didn't have that thing, and this is apparently to prevent clogging. Well, this is definitely very simple to remove, and if I understand correctly, you just put it back and push the yellow button. Yes. Okay, this is so much better than the one I had. Amazing. I don't know what this is for. Maybe it's to remove the yellow cover here. Now, before I power it on, is this actually grounded? If it is, that's not great, because my adapter doesn't ground. Oh my, it is. So I won't be able to ground the tip of the Hakko. So that's kind of a disappointment. I mean, ground is ground everywhere. I don't understand why you don't want ground on your adapter. Think about it. I'll think of what to do. I might get in touch with the seller and see what they say. And we'll move from there. But for now, I would say let's plug it in and see if this thing actually works. Let's turn these on. This is now on, and there's a little on-off button here at the back. 3, 2, 1, go. There is a red LED, and I guess this is getting hot. It is, yes. Cool. This is now set to 1.5, so it should be like something like 360 degrees, more or less. Now, this is not the most accurate of the thermometers, but let's see what it reads. It's reading 350, and yeah, it's supposed to be a bit more, but it's supposed to be between 350 and 400, so I'm pretty happy with that. Let's start the move. Oh wow, this is loud. It's loud, but it's a very convincing sound. It's definitely very instant. Let's put it away, and I already see some debris inside. Now this is a dual layer board. I guess this is pretty simple for any desoldering gun, but as a first test, let me see how well it works. Now, I am incredibly impressed. This feels very sturdy. The tip is very solid, very sturdy. My old AOU one, I think since brand new, always felt wobbly. You can feel that the whole gun is bending when you're wiggling around the joints. Also, the pump feels much more effective than the AOU. When I pull the trigger, it feels like it's starting straight away with no delay, with no nothing. It's great. Now, this is a single layer board, so obviously you kind of expect this kind of result. I could have probably done with the other one, though I guess it would have probably clogged twice by doing this. And so far, this has been doing great. Well, I guess we can see the solder inside. Yeah, you can see the solder inside, and so far it doesn't feel like it's going to clog at all. Now, eventually will. I'll explain you why it's kind of normal for these devices to get clogged. I'm hoping that the Hakko is clogging less. Let's put it that way. Now, let me find maybe some more difficult board. This is really a very easy exercise for any desoldering gun. Now, this is a motherboard. It's one of the most difficult boards for removing through-hole components. It's very much damaged. I think it was sent by Dexter from the Retro Web. Thank you for sending it. As you can see, I never worked on it. And I'm really... Okay. Moo! And I'm really not expecting the Hakko to do some magic and just remove capacitors without preheating the board. I'm convinced that you will still need to preheat the board. I'm just curious to see what happens. So it's totally a test. This board, I guess, is more or less beyond repair. Let me see if I can remove this capacitor here. I would say, first thing first, let me increase the temperature. Hakko say to go up to 400 and some degrees. I think it makes sense to me. So let's turn this little dial to a higher setting. Okay. And you can see that the LED here is solid red. And at some point, it will start flashing, and that should tell me that the temperature has been reached. There we go. The LED is now kind of on and off, so the temperature should have been reached. I guess it's always a good idea to give these units a few more seconds, maybe a couple of minutes, to make sure that the whole thing is up to temperature. But let's see what the thermometer says. It's reading 450, and yeah, once again, this is supposed to be a bit more than 450, but it's fine. I mean, it's definitely working. As a starting point, I'd like to, I need to at least refresh the solder, so I'll add some leaded solder with my regular soldering iron. Wow. Wow. It worked. I am beyond being impressed. A capacitor on the motherboard is not necessarily connected to a ground plane, but we are close to the CPU. So I totally expect the capacitor to be connected to a ground plane. Let me try and remove this through-hole component. This is definitely something to do with power, and I'm sure this is wired to lots of ground and power planes. You can actually see at the back, it's plenty of ground planes. I am incredibly impressed. It really feels like a different league of tool compared to the one I had. But most importantly, it seems to be working totally fine. The adapter is getting lukewarm. There is a fan inside, so I guess as long as the fan is not starting, this is fine. I'm just disappointed by the grounding. I don't understand why this thing is not grounded. There's absolutely no need. Now, am I reading a voltage at the tip? Because that wouldn't be great. I am. I'm reading 60 volts. Do I read the current? There is no DC current in between the tip and ground. What about AC? There is nothing. So I'd imagine it's one of those, how would you call them, like ghost voltages. It's not nice to read, but again, that's why the thing is supposed to be grounded. And all the solder is magically inside the Hakko. This is so much better than that hideous like spring whatever container for the solder. And my understanding is to clean this is very simple. Okay. Oh, okay. There we go. So the solder getting from the tip is basically being, I would say, projected onto this metal thing, and that's where it solidifies immediately, and then eventually will fall into the little glass pipe. I mean, it's not glass, it's plastic. And I think there is a spare inside the box for this thing. Why? I don't know. I mean, it's a good idea. And there is no sign of blockage or any excessive solder in there, so, well, whatever Hakko have been doing with that thing, it seems to be working fine. Now, if I'm seeing that right, that disc is actually touching the rubber gasket. I think the little metal disc is to give the end of the tip, well, the end of the tube, a little bit of thermal mass. So when you are sucking away solder, it's not reaching a colder tube and solidify straight away. It's a good idea. And to put it back is very simple. That's it. It's all done. I have been struggling with this thing and with this hideous design, which I understand is common with some other of these cheap tools that you can buy online. I really dislike this. I know that someone likes it. I dislike this thing because you can never clean this properly. Yes, you can use hot air, you can use a soldering iron. It's just a mess, and usually I end up bending it like permanently. I'm really happy that now I have one of these. Again, it seems to be working totally fine, touch wood, so hopefully nothing is going to happen. Wow. And I am so impressed that I was able to remove this broken PCI slot with basically no efforts. The FR-301 never clogged, and I only had to reflow 4 joints, and everything else came out without having to wiggle, without having to insist or apply any stress to the board. That being said, there is some damage to the board. It really depends on the board sometimes. I do feel that maybe that high temperature, yes, allows you to remove that connector without preheating the board, but the PCB sometimes doesn't like it. Again, it really depends on the boards. Let me show you. And you should be able to see there is a little bit of damage on the, let's say, the outer layer of the PCB, plus I damaged a little bit the via here. Not the end of the world. I would say this is something that can happen with desoldering guns, because after all, you're applying some friction around it, because you want to keep the tip as close as possible to the joint. So when the desoldering gun is sucking air, it's sucking air through the joint and not from the little gap in between the tip and the joint itself. And once again, this sometimes depends on the PCB, on the quality of the PCB, and sometimes this can be mitigated with a little bit of practice. And I'd imagine if you preheat the board and use a lower temperature, you might be able to reduce the amount of damage. But the most important part is that the Hakko behaved beautifully and it never clogged, which wouldn't have happened with my OUE. Now let's see what happens when we try and clean it. Do we see anything coming out from the other end? No, I've got the bit completely inside the tip here, and I thought you would see it from the other end, but you don't, and there's nothing that came out from it. So yeah, it feels clean. So that's great. Now, if you bear with me for a few more minutes, towards the end of the video, I'll show you my technique on how I use a desoldering gun, whether it's Hakko or anything else. Now, I don't have spare tips, but I'm curious to see this quick release tool. So let me turn this on first. So it's actually pretty hot. This is pretty heavy, pretty sturdy. And I believe this goes in here, something like this. Oh wow. And then I'll have to push this, and this comes out. Oh wow. Now this is silicone, so it should survive. Yeah, that is my tip, which is kind of, I would say, disappointed. It's very small, but obviously it works pretty well. So I'm not really complaining about this, but I was expecting something different. My OUE, I'll show you in a minute. My OUE, I'm probably not saying that right, OUE. My other soldering station has a much bigger tip, you'd expect much better thermal performance out of it. And I'd imagine this is the heating element because it's blue. So this has reached pretty high temperature and the tip is just sitting on top of it. When it comes to tips, remember guys, don't buy expensive soldering irons, soldering, desoldering guns or whatever, and then buy tips from AliExpress, unless you know someone who actually can sell good quality tips. The material of a tip, they're absolutely critical in delivering the heat to your PCB. So I appreciate that especially JBC tips can be expensive. Just bear in mind that a good tip will make a huge difference. So the quick release thing is absolutely fantastic. Now I'll have to purchase some other tips. This is 1mm. I might want something bigger, smaller. Hello. This is maybe not the best thing, but it's okay, it works. It's a pretty simple mechanism. Those pins will engage here and you just turn it. There you go, done. And let's see how much solder we collected with our PCI slot. We got something inside here. Oh yeah, it's quite a lot, but it's very easy to clean. And as you can see, this is where the soldering is coming out from the pipe and it's being sprayed onto this metal piece, which is cold, so it solidifies in there. And every now and then what happens, one of these bits is just falling off the cold metal thing and it just falls inside a plastic tube. There you go. You can just scrape this off. I guess it's not really necessary. Just remove the whatever it's in the tube and then eventually this will fall off by itself when it's time. And I've also realized what this tool is. This is not just a little screwdriver to adjust the temperature here, it's also a tool to clean the heating element. Now obviously the little tube inside the Hakko is bigger than the opening of the tip because you can purchase tips with a bigger opening. You can see that this metal rod is to be used with the 1mm tip, the one which is installed from the factory. But the rest of the pipe might get clogged as well, so the plan would be to remove the tip, warm up the Hakko and then use the screwdriver to clean the heating element tube, like this. I thought it was just a screwdriver, but it's also a screwdriver, but it has this unique feature. Now, before I share with you my technique on how I use a desoldering gun, I'd like to share my understanding on why a desoldering gun clogs very easily. So the way a desoldering gun works is pretty simple, of course. The tip goes to, say, 400 degrees, 350 degrees, it melts the solder, and when you pull the trigger, a pump creates an airflow between the tip and this container here, and this vacuum sucks away the molten solder. Now, when you pull the trigger, you are sucking cold air through this pipe, and cold air, of course, will cool down everything more or less instantly. I've disassembled my old desoldering gun, and one advantage that I thought it had is that the tip is actually including the little tube which eventually discharges into this little container here. Now I'm assuming that this here is the heating element, and the idea is that you are heating the tip and the pipe, so when solder gets sucked in, it stays molten until it comes out from the other end of the pipe. But once again, you are sucking cold air through this little pipe, so the solder will solidify or might solidify in the journey in between this end and this end. And that's why I thought that this design was the best, because the heating element is not only heating up the tip, but also heating up the pipe, which eventually will carry the solder in a molten state until it comes out of it. And in any case, this happens to any desoldering gun, whether it comes with a little tube like this or whether it comes with just the tip as the Hakko. The problem is that the board you're working on is cold, the component is cold, so you are melting the solder on the joint, but the rest of the component is cold. And then you are sucking cold air through everything, so it's kind of normal that everything cools down and the solder just solidifies in the wrong place. And this is probably why Hakko says vacuum on 5 seconds, off 10 seconds. I'm not sure whether that's to say this is the average to draw 98 watts, or that's like instruction for use, but it makes sense to me, because the moment you're sucking air through the tube, you're cooling it down, so it's only normal that you give it a few seconds for the thermal of the whole system to stabilize again. Now, this is a JBC style tip, and the advantage of these tips is that the heating element and these temperature sensors are inside the tip itself. So the sensor, the temperature sensor, the thermocouple, is able to capture the variations in temperature pretty quickly. When it comes to a tool like this, and I see that the Hakko is a similar design, well, the heating element is this one, and I'd imagine the thermocouple is inside the heating element. So I'd imagine the thermocouple is probably unable to pick up the instant variation that you have the moment you touch the board and you pull the trigger and there's some cold air going through the tube, which is cooling down the tube. But the heating element will probably sense it a few seconds later, when it's probably too late and the solder has already solidified. Now, clearly the Hakko is doing a better job, so I'd imagine it's a better heating element, maybe it's more powerful, maybe there are better materials, and the heat just goes to the right place quicker. And there might also be maybe less tolerances. You might be able that this thing is a little wobbly, and air is an excellent insulator. And then, of course, when it comes to my old desoldering gun, we have this little design mess and solder goes everywhere. It's really difficult to clean and I really don't like it, so I'm really happy I've moved forward and I don't have to clean this anymore. Now, that being said, I'd like to show you my technique when I'm desoldering something with a desoldering gun. First thing first, make sure that your desoldering gun is up to temperature, and especially if you have one of those cheap old stations like mine, like my Aoyui, you want to give it plenty of time for the whole system to get to temperature. The temperature you read on the display is probably just the temperature of the thermocouple inside the heating element, and that doesn't mean that all the parts have already reached that temperature, so give it a few minutes, it won't hurt. Then place the desoldering gun on the joint and wiggle the joint back and forth. This way you are melting the solder and moving things around so the heat is spreading as much as possible inside the joint. The point of all of this is that you want the solder to be molten from one end to the other. You're gonna do that for, say, a couple of seconds. It's important to understand that heat doesn't transmit instantly. It takes a little bit of time. And again, the board is cold, the component is cold, so don't be afraid of waiting a couple of seconds. Just count mentally. Only then you can pull the trigger while you're still wiggling the solder joint so that the molten solder has a chance to dislodge and being sucked away by your desoldering gun. Let me show you. So I place the desoldering gun on the joint, I wiggle it, pull the trigger, and out. On, wiggle, trigger, out. On, wiggle, trigger, out. Now, this is a simple board, fair enough, but for demonstration purposes, I think it's good. Obviously, this wiggling action will cause some friction on the PCB itself. It's up to you whether you see that the board is being a bit damaged, it's fragile, you want to try and minimize the pressure. You don't need to push a lot, you just need to make sure that there is no gap or very little gap in between the desoldering tip and the PCB when you're pulling the trigger. Now, one other little trick is that when the soldering iron is engaged on the joint and you are wiggling the joint and you pull the trigger and the desoldering iron starts to pull solder out of the joint, well, there is only so much that the pump can do because now the joint is inside the tip and you are pushing the desoldering gun towards the PCB. So the pump is kind of struggling to pull air through the joint, which is what you want. But in the end, I think it's a good idea if you remove the desoldering gun from the joint while you keep pulling this, you will hear that the gun is kind of relaxing, so that means that more cold air is going through the pipe, and that hopefully will prevent clogging. So let me show you what I mean with a different framing. On, wiggle, pull. You might be able to hear that the pump changes noise once the desoldering gun is removed from the PCB. I'll shut up, so hopefully you can hear it. I'll do a few joints. I had a chat with the Japanese seller on eBay about the ground problem with the converter, and unfortunately they could only confirm the problem and they couldn't offer any solution. They basically said, "Thank you very much, thank you for your understanding, and goodbye." So I've done what anybody would have done in my position. I've disassembled the converter, trying to find a solution myself. Now, first thing first, I do not recommend you open a mains power device. They can be dangerous. So this is not a tutorial, I do not recommend you open it, I do not recommend you modding it. That being said, I've got good news. As I imagine, this is a switching-based device. This is converting AC into DC and then DC back to AC. So mains is coming through here. There is a little fuse, which is a nice touch. There is a bridge rectifier in there. And then I guess from here, the AC is converted into DC, and from DC somehow is converted back into AC. And this is the output of my 105 volts, 55 hertz. Now, first thing first, this is nicely done. There is extra insulation where we have the outputs. We have a fuse. I mean, it looks like good quality, so I'm impressed by that. But the very good news is that ground is accessible. It's just a matter of running a wire. Let me show you. I'm touching the ground pin in the socket and it's going here on this trace here. And this trace here, let me show you, it doesn't go anywhere. You might be able to see from this angle that the trace is not going anywhere, but ground is accessible. There is something soldered on it, so we can solder a wire in there. And this is one of the 105 volts AC output, and this pin in the middle is the ground pin, so it's actually populated. There's just nothing connected to it. It's difficult to show you while keeping everything steady because the socket is a bit stiff, but this recess in here is where the ground pin from the Hakko plug is going in. So we are going to solder our ground cable to this pin here, to this metal part here. And just to be on the safe side, I can check with my multimeter. There we go, we definitely have continuity between the metal part and the ground pin. So let's do it. Alright, little change of plans. I don't think I like my ground wire to just go basically across the live and neutral pins, which are these two here. So I think I'm going to wire my ground directly on at the back of the plug. So it's a bit more further away from where electricity is. Before we turn this on, let's double check that we have ground now connected. We do. Perfect. Let's double check there is no short between live and neutral. We don't. We have a short between ground and any of the pins. No. So then let's make sure that we don't have a short here between ground and any of this. Everything is okay. When it comes to the cord for this, I won't be able to use the one that was in the box. Let me show you why. Unfortunately, this is a 2 conductors cable, so I'll have to use another one, which is no big deal. This is a standard, I think it's called Mickey Mouse plug, so I can use one that I should have probably for my laptop. There we go, I'm going to use this one from my Lenovo laptop. Let's just make sure that the ground is actually connected. It is. Perfect. So let's wire it up and turn it on. I'm now plugged directly to mains. Let me double check that we have continuity with ground. And we do. This is actual ground, so this is working. Let me turn it on. 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, and on. And we have 106 volts. What are we getting out of curiosity between one of these and ground? Okay, we get this. Once again, imagine the output here is isolated. So we get this kind of random voltages between the output and ground. If you know more, let me know down below in the description. That's my understanding. This just happens because the output is not referenced to ground, so it's kind of a ghost voltage. What matters is that we are not going to get, hopefully, a voltage on the tip of the Hakko. Hakko is plugged in. I got one of the probes in ground, in the actual ground. And yes, the tip is grounded. Let's make sure that everything works. And let's turn it on. Now, it is on. And let's see what we're getting. I mean, we shouldn't get a voltage between the tip and actual ground. We don't. 0 volt AC. And obviously, I don't think we have DC. Perfect. That's what I wanted. And in theory, Yeah, of course we have continuity. And this is warming up. Yeah, totally fine. So this is working and I'm happy. Not happy that I had to modify this thing, but thankfully it's a simple thing to do. Now a quick digression on my understanding on how important ground is in this situation. If we were in Japan and I plug this into mains, well then ground has two important purposes. Now, hopefully, we'll all have an RCD, a residual current device, installed in our electrical systems. The purpose of an RCD is to make sure that you're not being electrocuted, more or less. Normally, electricity flows through the Hakko, through the heating element, and back to the RCD at the distribution board. So the RCD understands that everything is working normally. But if the heating element inside the Hakko gets damaged, suddenly this metal part might become live. Now, if you happen to touch it and you are grounded because you are sitting on something which is grounded, you're touching a grounded floor or any grounded items around your workbench, suddenly electricity, which likes ground, will find an easier path to go back to ground through my body than going back to the wire. And the role of the RCD is to sense this and it will immediately cut power. So if your Hakko is defective, you plug it in and suddenly power goes off in your room, well, you know there's something wrong with the Hakko, you probably stop using it, but most importantly, you haven't got time to touch the metal part and get electrocuted. But this is a different situation. This AC converter is isolating the 240 volts from the 105 volts it's outputting. That means that the 105 volts is generated, they're not referenced to ground, which means that if the metal part of the Hakko gets live, well, that electricity will not want to go back to ground. So even if you touch it, you shouldn't be electrocuted. You might be feeling something, but that shouldn't be anything serious. So in theory, if I'm not mistaken, and do leave a comment down below if you disagree with me, the reason why I wanted ground on this device is not for that, because this acts as an isolation transformer, so ground is really not needed. The reason I wanted ground on the tip of the Hakko is for static electricity. What could happen is that the metal part of your Hakko might have some electricity on it, some static electricity. That can happen for a number of reasons. It's like when you put a jumper on and suddenly you have static all around you. Now let's imagine the board I'm working on, it's a ground potential because I'm wearing a grounded wrist wrap, so the board automatically is a ground potential, but the Hakko has some voltage on it. The moment the Hakko touches the board, the potential between the two items will equalize. Actually, if I have a grounded wrist wrap, will eventually equalize to zero, which means you might have a sudden discharge of electricity between the Hakko and the board. And that's the whole purpose of being ESD safe. So now that my tip is grounded, I know that if I also have this item grounded, they will be at same potential, there won't be any electricity discharge when the Hakko touches anything. So I'm really happy with the outcome. Now let's get to the conclusion. I want to share with you where I purchased this Hakko, how much I paid it, and whether I recommend this whole process, whether I recommend the Hakko, the converter, and most importantly, the seller. So first thing first, how much money did I pay this whole kit? I purchased these on eBay UK from Japan and I paid everything £181, which is quite a good price because I believe the Hakko on the Hakko website, well, the Hakko distributor here in the UK, I think right now is about £470 including VAT. So this whole kit, Hakko and adapter is less than half price that what I would have paid for a 240 volts version from the UK distributor. Now, if you don't need a converter, you can get just the Hakko from the seller at £147, which is a bargain in my mind. It definitely looks genuine, it works super well, I'm truly happy with it. And if you don't need a converter, you happen to have one already, or you are planning to buy one somewhere else, it's only £147. If you do need a converter, I'm not sure whether I'm going to recommend this one. I'm not familiar with what kind of converters you can find online. I'd imagine there might be one which is grounded. Just make sure that it is grounded. Or if it's not grounded, something that can be easily grounded. These can be easily grounded, but it's a bit crammed inside, so it's not super easy. It took me quite some time to just squeeze it back together. But if you're happy to open this power converter and run the wires as I showed you, well, I have to say it's super easy to open this. The The converter is only kept together by 6 screws, and they are covered by 6 feet, which can be removed. They're like little plugs. So you take them off, remove the screws, and then when you put the screws back in, you just put the plug in, and there you go. You got your foot back in place. You don't need to glue it or break anything. It's absolutely, I would say, serviceable, even though obviously there's nothing serviceable inside. About the seller, well, I was disappointed that when I pointed out that this is not grounded, they just basically said, I'm sorry, yeah, you're right, it's not grounded, thank you very much, thank you for your understanding. That was disappointing because I purchased everything from the same seller exactly to avoid that kind of attitude. Whether that's the deal breaker, I'll leave it to you. I have to say that the shipping, everything, the packing was fine. It was shipped through, I can't remember if it was DHL or FedEx, so like a big courier. It only took a few days to come here in the UK, and at least for now, unless something happens, I didn't pay any tax on it. I was totally expecting to pay some VAT or custom something coming from Japan, but so far they didn't get in touch with me, they didn't send me an invoice, I just received the item and I didn't pay anything. So I paid, for now, £181 altogether, including shipping and with no tax. I'll put the name on the seller on screen if you want to have a look on eBay. Once again, I purchased this with my own money, so this is not a sponsored video, at least not sponsored by eBay, Hakko, Bestech, or this seller. So finger crossed the Hakko is gonna last a long time. I won't need to use the warranty because I doubt that Hakko UK are gonna help me with a Japanese version. I guess I'll have to go back to the UK seller and hope they will help me and be like the middleman in between Hakko Japan and me and send parts or whatever is needed. Of course, if you don't want to deal with any of these, you want peace of mind, buy the genuine one from either Hakko or one of the distributors. I believe from some of the distributors you can actually get a lower price than 470, but if you get an official UK version, then you have the warranty, you don't have to worry about the converter, but it's not going to be £180. So if you're up for a little gamble, this is definitely something. I'm pretty impressed with this unit. This is like 10 times better than the one I had before, and I look forward to the next motherboard recap that I'm gonna do with this Hakko, and hopefully I will struggle a bit less than my old Aoyui. And this is all I've got for you today. If you enjoyed this video, as usual, I'd appreciate a thumb up down below, and also consider subscribing to this channel and my second channel if you like this kind of things. Don't forget I'm on Facebook and on Patreon, the links are down below in the description. There is a free tier on Patreon, so no excuses, but if you don't want to support me on Patreon, well, maybe you can buy me a coffee, and the link is also down below in the description. If you don't want to buy me a coffee, well, that's totally fine, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Well, that's it for today. Thank you for watching, I hope you have a great day, and I hope to see you again here soon on my channels for my next videos. Thank you very much, and goodbye. Bye bye.